There was a vote yesterday on Bill C-13. That's the federal government's update of the Official Languages Act. One Liberal MP voted against the government's bill. Anthony Housefather is that MP. He joins us now. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mutsumi.
So, Anthony, this was a whipped vote, meaning you were under pressure to vote for this. It's quite possible you might pay a personal price for this, voting against your own government, but you voted against it anyway. Why?
I'm a parliamentary secretary, so I take it very seriously because I am part of government, and I don't think there's been one occasion since 2015 that I voted against a government bill. But in this case, I felt that I had to. First of all, I think we've all seen the times in the National Assembly when there's been a unanimous vote and the English-speaking community felt that nobody was standing up for us. The Bonjour Hi vote is a good example. And I've been speaking out since the beginning, voicing my concerns about the references in the bill to Law 96, which uses the notwithstanding clause preemptively. I did my best to put forward amendments to remove these references. My party supported me, the opposition parties didn't. It's still in the bill. And I just felt that with all of the organizations in English-speaking Quebec being concerned and so many in the community that I represent being concerned, I couldn't in good conscience look myself in the mirror if I voted in favor of the bill and had a unanimous vote in the House of Commons, leaving the English-speaking community feeling isolated.
Do you have any idea why none of the other Liberal MPs who represent English ridings in Quebec didn't stand up with you?
Well, let me start by saying that from the beginning, they have been part of helping me get our position through in caucus and to committee. So Sherry Romanato abstained, which was, I think, very courageous on her part. And when it comes to Emmanuel Lombropoulos, Patricia Latanzio, Annie Katrakis, Alexandra Mendez, they've helped me articulate in caucus with Mark Garneau why we needed to remove these references to the Charter. We got the Prime Minister to agree. He realized that the references to the notwithstanding clause, preemptive use in Law 96 meant we should not reference it in the bill. And we tried at committee to get it out, and they all helped. Now we're in a more difficult situation where there's a government bill, there's pressure on everyone to conform, and I think everyone then has to make their own decision. But I don't want everybody to think that other MPs weren't helpful in this process. They have indeed been.
As you say, Anthony, this bill references Quebec's language law, Bill 96. So what are the implications of this?
So my first concern is a political one in the sense that the English-speaking community of Quebec, which is one of the groups that's supposed to be protected under the Official Languages Act, massively rejects Law 96. So I think it's hurtful to refer to it in a federal bill that's supposed to protect our community. Number two, I think we've already stated, which I appreciate, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Justice have stated that we will go to court in the Law 21 case or some other way to challenge the preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause. I think it will be harmful to our legal case when the Quebec Attorney General says, but you cited in your very own law the bill which uses the notwithstanding clause preemptively. Finally, I'm not worried under a Liberal government, but I can see under some future government who might accuse to Quebec and say we want to reduce services in English in Quebec, federal services, that they will use these references in the bill to make the claim that the bill contemplated this. And when our community goes to court to oppose that, these references will certainly create a risk. I don't know how substantial that risk would be. I evaluate it as a moderate risk. Others may say it's a minimal risk, but there's a risk nonetheless, and I'm not willing to accept that risk.
So yesterday, all the parties in the House voted for a bill that Quebec's English community opposes. So where does this leave Quebec's English community?
Well, I would say that fortunately at committee, the Liberal position was very different than the other parties. The other parties wanted to add a massive number of references to Quebec's Charter of the French language. They essentially wanted it to apply federally, and we opposed that. So our party position is different. What I would also say is that going forward, the bill will go to the Senate. Maybe the Senate will amend it. I hope they will. And we also have the action plan on official languages, which has come out, which is very positive for our community. And we should look to that action plan and the funds under it, which doubled funding to the Court Challenges program to look to challenge the provisions of Law 96 we think are unconstitutional, to look to things like the expansion at Dawson College that we need to put in place, and look to the federal government for support where the provincial government's not providing support. And I intend to stay and fight within my party, within Parliament, to make sure that the voice of the English-speaking community is heard. And I know that my colleagues will do likewise.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking time out to speak to us today.
Thanks for having me.